the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen. I cover the Suns and the NBA for SB Nation, as well as Dime Magazine. Follow me on Twitter at Brendon Kleen 14. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On PHX Suns. Back on YouTube today, continuing to churn out podcasts for you this way. Hopefully you will subscribe. We are giving away a Suns NBA Finals towel that I honestly forgot I was intending to give out, but this is a perfect occasion. 100 subscribers when we get there. I'm going to pick somebody at random, give it to you. But because it is a Monday, of course, I'm joined by Brandon, as those on video can see. Coming back to video, and we'll be doing this every Monday. You and I, Brandon, will be doing it on video every single day otherwise. But we're coming to everybody after a barn burner of a Summer League game. Austin Reeves winning it for the Lakers in a very low-scoring, very, very Summer League type of game. We're going to talk about Jalen Smith because I think he's the headliner of all of this. Talk about what the Suns have done in free agency since the last time we talked and what that sort of means for this squad. And close the show probably continuing on that conversation about what maybe we could see happen next. But let's start with the man of the hour. Jalen Smith gets a start in his first Summer League game. What do you think we're going to see from him this week, and what do you see tonight?
Yeah, so it was definitely a Summer League game with Summer League offense for sure. But I did like his energy, and I thought, he showed some things, some flashes that reminded you why he's picked number 10. Because he does have a unique skill set at that size to be able to, spread the floor and to run the court. Like that breakaway dunk he had was awesome. So some encouraging flashes, but at the same time, it's I would have liked to see him a little more involved in what they're doing. Obviously, it's tough to do that with any big, especially if you're more of a stretch big or like energy big like he is right now. So, overall, came away impressed just with the energy and all that. But, their Summer League roster is pretty interesting.
It really is. It is a roster full of young players, full of I think Kellen Olson of Arizona Sports had it that it's one of the only Summer League rosters that he could find dating back many, many years that didn't have a single player from the current rookie class in it, which is unique. It's going to be a situation where he's going to star, I think, and get all the opportunities that he wants. And I think some of that is intentional. Like, they're probably trying to find some veteran contributors, guys who are a little older, who they could bring at the very end of the roster. Vegas, but at the same time, I think to give Smith the opportunity, get as many shots, get as many opportunities. Played 30 minutes tonight, took the final shot of the game off of an inbounds, taking a movement three, which, we'll see how much of that they play regular season. But for tonight, it was indicative of, I think, what we're going to see. Some of the things that you and I talked about back during the G League bubble of the given, the grab and go stuff, just a freelance a lot, like dribble the ball, handle the ball stuff, which is what Summer League is for, what you wish you were here. So I don't think we saw anything, at least personally, I don't feel like I saw anything new or surprising out of Smith, although he does look a little bigger. That's good. That's relatively new. But what do you think we can expect from him if this sort of is his package as a player this season? Because I don't feel like we should be thinking he's going to be a playmaker all of a sudden or at some point marksman. It seems like he's going to be maybe a little bit of a more polished and smarter version of the guy we saw coming out of Maryland.
Yeah, and I think in the Summer League, obviously it's his first time being in the Summer League since there wasn't one last year. So there had to be some nerves there, even though he's more on the experienced end and, just, came off a finals run with the with the Suns team that I'm sure, just practicing with all the guys really matured him throughout the year. So it probably wasn't too big of a leap for him to handle or anything like that. And I think just getting into like game flow and just getting reps is super valuable for him because, I mean, the past year outside of the G League bubble, he hasn't played a lot of minutes. So I think it's good to just get those reps in and practice some stuff. And like you said, he hasn't really done anything new yet. I don't think we're going to expect to see anything new. It's just more of him succeeding in his role. And that's kind of what I look for in the summer league. Like, you don't look for guys that are, dominating in one area that they're not going to be able to do. Like, for example, if someone's like a high volume scorer in the summer league, that same player is probably not going to get the same like workload in the NBA season. So
unless they play for the
Smith
Rockets,
just excelling at his role. True. Yeah. But Smith just excelling at his role is kind of what you need to look for. And I think in the Suns system, like what he did in tonight's game is like it'll be like a condensed version of that. So overall, I was, fairly impressed, but at the same time, he did what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, one of the things I saw a lot of discussion about just online and even from non-Suns fans was the way that they're using him. And I think it's kind of simple to say, is he going to be, the Dario Saric, or is he going to be the whatever? Because he's a different player. He has a different skill set. I think he's a really good offensive rebounder, for instance, that no one else except for Ayton on this roster really is. And I think
he has a quick second jump too. Just how he gets off the floor real quick. So that's
and if he continues to add strength, then that'll help him even more. And just having that NBA frame that he didn't have coming out of school. So I don't think it's always great to use those types of comparisons, but I do wonder because the way that they're using him right now, I think does frustrate some Suns fans just thinking, well, he has more to his game. We know if he's going to reach his peak, like he'll probably be a more well-rounded player than what he's being asked to be right now. But again, like you said, it's only really year one for him, if we're being honest, and you don't want to ask him to do too much. So if we're using, like James Jones did say last week, that he's Smith to at least get the chance to be in the rotation, what do you think is a reasonable expectation based on what we're seeing from him, that he is asked to do that role that you're talking about, but that, look, they have to fill Dario Saric's spot a little bit. We don't want to see a ton of Frank Kaminsky necessarily, both for the future and just to win. He's not a high ceiling type of player, whereas Smith might be. So what do you think is reasonable to expect, just with all of that in mind in year 1/2?
Yeah, so it's kind of similar to DeAndre Ayton in the sense where you could probably do more, but I think right now you just want to focus on the basics, and I think that's the way this organization runs in general. So just getting him to, be really good at like the simple stuff first and then add stuff on later. I think that's the correct path to go with him. Obviously in the summer league is a time to experiment with some stuff, but it is his first time in the summer league. And I think, we might see a little bit more from him in games like 2 and 3, and maybe he gets a little more creative, but I think for the most part, you're going to see him run exactly what he would in the Suns system as if he was playing for them, because that's what they care about. They care about him being ready to fill the void that they're going to need with Dario's injury. And, they signed JaVale McGee, so he's probably not going to be playing a ton of 5. He'll probably be playing a lot of 4, whether that's with Ayton or McGee or, in some sort of small ball lineup possibly. Who knows? But, yeah, I think just getting the basics down first and realizing that every rookie, not just him, like every rookie went through the same thing this year, and it's just kind of like you have to temper expectations a little bit. So overall, I think him just excelling in his role and just trying to translate and carry that over into the season is what it's all about.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that's fair. And it's not even, I don't think it's like making excuses for him. I think it's just the reality, because even if you set aside the stuff about this season and the no summer league and no training camp, like that all does matter. But even if that feels unfair to some fans that just want him to be able to play at a higher level right away here, I think the other thing, this is a guy who was going to be a little bit, I don't want to say a project, but even if he had that last season, I don't think it's fair to say he was going to come in and be a major rotation player for a winning team. He had things about his game in terms of his frame and some of the interesting ball handling or shooting or versatility, that stuff was always going to take a bit, right? Like the offensive rebounding, the floor spacing, that was pretty much the raw package you were going to get. The rest of it was always going to take a bit. So I think the fact that we're seeing that isn't super bad, and he is still producing. Like, Summer League, he was clearly the alpha on this team, and it looked good. He looked like he was supposed to be there. He held his own. He was the best player on the floor at times. So I don't think there's anything to be negative about at all, and I think it's going to be exciting to see what he does this week. But let's kind of use that as a jumping off point to talk about a different context of this roster. But I think what Smith's development may be informed about how the Suns built out this roster. It's not done yet, but I think we have some clues already. So we'll get to that in just a second as we continue through free agency. But first, a quick word from Stat Hero. Did you know that 85% of people who play daily fantasy sports lose? I mean, that's not a surprise to any of us. I've lost plenty of times. I don't think I've ever won, actually. So it's not, when you think about it that way, the game really feels rigged against you. You're playing against thousands of other lineups, not to mention experts, people who literally do it for a living, who just sit on daily fantasy every day, win money, make a living, and they crush you. That's what they're supposed to do. So Stat Hero is there to solve that problem for you. It's the first ever daily fantasy sportsbook that puts the player in control and winning within reach. Here's how it works. Stat Hero shows you their lineups and dares you to beat them. It's you versus the house in a head-to-head fantasy matchup. Makes sense. We're talking about Summer League. I'm in Vegas right now, and it is a great idea. You name your stakes, winner take all. You have the advantage, and Stat Hero is, again, showing you their lineups ahead of time. No one else does that in daily fantasy sports. So, again, I've done all the normal companies. I've done the regular daily stuff. You put in your lineup. You think you have some edge. You read an article. Okay, nope, you lost. So Stat Hero shows you. Here's all you got to beat. It means you don't have to have the absolute best lineup. You just got to beat that one. It doesn't need to be the best. It doesn't need to score the absolute most points. It just needs to beat what Stat Hero shows you. Stat Hero is DFS the way it was meant to be, one-on-one. Play Stat Hero now and change the odds. Go to stathero.com/lockedon, sign up for free, and right now you can get 3 times back on your first play. They're giving you a 300% match, unheard of in the industry. So go to stathero.com/lockedon, stathero.com/lockedon. Okay, we are back here. Let's continue on the Jalen Smith talk a little bit, Brandon, but also pivot to some free agency, because I think hearing Jones be like, he doesn't really lie when he's asked questions like that. And he said point blank he expects Smith to potentially be part of the rotation. So I believe him. I'll take him at his word. And I think when you look at it that way, some of them not pursuing some of these forward and center guys that we, fans and all of us analyzing free agency thought they might, I think it could be because of Smith. So I'll just start there before we get into the specifics of who and whether they should have or shouldn't have different guys. Do you think that is, generally speaking, part of why they've been operating the way that they have, is that they really feel like he's a guy who could play for them next season?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of that, and also you have to realize there's not that many minutes available in the first place. So, it's a two-way street, right? Like, you need players that want to come play for you and know they're going to have a significant role. And I'm sure they're not going to promise anyone anything at this point with the way their roster is filled out. So I think it's partially that, but also, like, you still have the trade deadline too. So, I mean, if Jalen Smith is not ready and, the trade deadline's rolling around, you can always make that a move to fill in a spot there. And there's a buyout market as well. So I think he's thinking big picture right now. He's not in any rush to just get some stopgap forward that, is going to end up unhappy just not playing or anything like that. So I think Smith, you don't want to rely on him too much, but at the same time, you need him to be ready to play at least 10 to 15 minutes a game by year 2 if you're a top 10 pick. So I think that's the hope and expectation. If it doesn't work out, then you have some fallback options later on.
Yeah, it makes me feel like it won't maybe be Paul Millsap, LaMarcus Aldridge, a couple guys who I talked about when John Gambadoro reported that it was unlikely they were going to be here. I talked about, I was disappointed. I thought they would really help the team, but I think we'll probably see them sign at least one more guy like that. But mostly I think you'll see the way that James Jones was able to protect against being ready to be the backup point guard with a guy each one more, Galloway with staggering Booker and Chris Paul, different things that we saw the last year. With that, I think we'll see this year. Smith is going to be given every opportunity, a small role for this team. If he can handle that and improve past it, great. If he can't, then already one of them, and I think that we will see them sign at least one more big. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad way to go, because you see some of the contracts that were given out, and you don't want to overpay for multiple years of a player if you think Smith can be that too. Like, there is that other side of it where you box him out of being able to play, and then because you got this big contract on your book, now your young guys being out of the rotation. We Mason Plumlee in Detroit, right? Like, they thought of safety center, and then it's like, well, damn, we don't really want to play him. We don't really want to give him minutes. So, and me on the Aldridge, do you think that those were guys that they should have gone after, or and what type of player do you think we will see them go after if they do?
Yeah, I think the market right now is just there's a lot of options that I think are just kind of waiting on both other players to sign elsewhere and just kind of see where like the final dominoes fall. So I think it's adding.
What is it waiting on though? What is it waiting on? It's going so slow. It's so weird.
It is. It really died down. Like, it feels like all the GMs just like, hey, let's just like take a week off and just kind of get back to things like next week or something.
Can't blame them.
It's pretty
working
strange
for like a year straight, but
yeah, maybe once like Markkanen, like that situation gets resolved or something, all those like power forwards and centers will start slowly going to different teams like one by one. But
it could be the sign and trade stuff, the investigations. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's like, are these deals actually going to go through the way that they're supposed to? ESPN had it that like the Lowry and the Ball sign and trades got, looked at by the league. Maybe it's that. It's like, if those things fall apart and some differences,
that would be a disaster.
It would. I mean, the Bulls just announced theirs.
Yeah. But it reminds me of
that got rescinded, so I don't know. But
so if that happens, it's not good for the rest of the free agent class, but we'll see.
Another big.
I just cut out there.
Oh, I'm not.
Sorry.
If they do pursue another big here.
Just someone that can guard bigger forwards and probably just a veteran that can play both positions. Like, you don't want to box yourself in too much. So I think just keeping the versatility, and someone like Millsap, I think, would make a lot of sense for that reason. But at the same time, if he's not going to be playing a lot, then he's probably not going to want to come here. But yeah, I think another name, Kevin Love and Thad Young, who we talked about, off the record. Thad Young would be a perfect fit, I think, for a lot of reasons. No idea if he's actually going to be a realistic option, but I would love that. And Kevin Love would be more of like a buyout guy, maybe like mid-season, that could just add some back-end depth, bring another veteran presence. But yeah, I think short term it's going to end up just being someone that's there just in case.
Good.
It's cutting out again.
So weird. Okay. It looks like it's green on my side now. Yellow. Is it better?
It's better now, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think the more that I look at the roster, I think I was overreacting a little bit to the need for a player like that. I was feeling like they needed, in order to just be versatile. But I think to the next, and I want to talk about that Young. I want to talk, maybe a spot that might still be potential to fill out the roster. I want to hear your Alfred Payton thoughts, because it seems like that could happen. But I think the roster, the rotation is going to look pretty much the same, and the flexibility of this team. I think, but I also think season. Like, never thought Torrey Craig would be the answer in training camp to be able to defend like LeBron James in a pinch, or, Paul George in a pinch, or players like that. And he ended up being that. And that was a fluke, right? So it's like, when you're a great team, roster building happens all season. When you're bad, which is what we're used to thinking about, you get your guys and you roll with it, and you don't really make a lot of trades and stuff. But in this case, I think that will happen. So let's talk about a couple of what could be out there for them as the season rolls along, as free agency closes up. We'll talk about all of that in just a second. First, though, a quick word from Built Bar. The best tasting protein bar ever, really the healthiest candy bar ever, is the better way to think about it. It's packed with protein, 5 to 6 grams of sugar at max, but really you're nearing 20 grams of protein with every single bar. They are all covered in 100% chocolate, soft and easy to chew, delicious bars. 8 to 10 flavors, but they're constantly rotating out, constantly trying new stuff. I saw at the store, actually, out in Vegas, butter brownie, which I've never even heard of. I did not know that flavor existed, so try those. But you've heard me on Friday, if you listen to that show, tell you we are getting a center here in Phoenix. So if you've ever thought about ordering Built Bar, if you've ever wondered if it's worth it, wondered how long the shipment might take, is now Built Bar is going to build a place right here in the Valley for us as possible. They're coming here, ingratiating our community. It's going to be cool because I love them, and it takes a while to get them sometimes because their demand is high. They're going to be right here. You're going to get A's. They're going to be out at sporting events. It's going to be awesome. So I'm excited to come to the Valley by supporting them and ordering a pack by built.com. That's built.com, using the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% next order. It doesn't have to be your first or before. Feel free to dive back in, and that's 15 for 15% off. Built.com. Today's also sponsored by betonline.ag. BetOnline is the fastest and the easiest way to bet on all sports. Baseball season in full swing, and you can track all the action at BetOnline. Just forget the Diamondbacks. They're done. It's over. Don't worry about it anymore. Don't bet that they're going to win games. It's just going to be frustrating for you. But have fun with baseball. Bet on the teams that are actually good. Bet on the teams that are actually fun. It's all out there at BetOnline for updated news, sign-up bonuses, and contest info. They've got MVP for both leagues. They've got playoff odds. They've got World Series odds, other awards besides MVP, everything. And it's getting to that time where that stuff starts to get decided. So find the value. Get in on the action as teams prep for their run to the pennant. Head to the website right on betonline.ag or on their mobile app. Sign up today, and when you do, use the promo code LOCKEDON to get a 50% welcome bonus straight to your account. That's promo code LOCKEDON to get a 50% welcome bonus straight to your account. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Okay. Let's close out here, Brandon. You mentioned Thad Young break there, and I wanted to get your thoughts on him. I know he was perking the attention of a lot of Suns fans for obvious reasons. He's a great fit here. He's that versatile 4-5 guy and some of these bigger players that this roster has needed for years, ever since they drafted DeAndre Ayton. So I guess I'll ask, I want to hear you talk about that in general, but also just more specifically how you feel about the Suns being able to go out with those guys as the season rolls along. Like, is that a safe assumption? Because Smith, if he is or isn't, there are going to be some flexibility, but like, get to the deadline and like the best you can do is Rondé Hollis Jefferson, or one of these, these very fringe NBA guys. That's a problem. So should they be banking on that? And do you think Thad should be sort of priority number one?
So first of all, Thad, I'm all aboard that train. I think it'd be a perfect fit for so many different reasons. Like you mentioned, just his ability to play the 4 and 5 and guard multiple positions would just give him that security blanket and really give him the ability to just throw out some awesome lineups. I think just from positions like 3 to 5, you could throw out like a bunch of different combinations that would be pretty interesting. So I think that's just in general a very underrated player that could benefit from playing on a team like Phoenix. But yeah, I think the Suns shouldn't bank on it. But at the same time, there's always so many different free agents that are like not free agents, players that are bought out towards the deadline. So I think you could kind of count on there being options available, but who's to say that they're going to want to come to Phoenix? And that's where, having that, biannual exception could kick in just as a sweetener. You could outbid some teams. So I think in a way, you like keeping some of these in your back pocket. These exceptions could end up helping them stand out among the competition whenever these guys do become available, like a Larry Nance or like a Thad Young or someone like that.
Yeah, no, I think I don't hate the idea of having that need, knowing that you can have different ways to address it, because they are going to be a destination on the buyout market, even more so than they were last season. Like last year they were because they were good, but now they've if you come here, you're going to have a genuine shot at a deep playoff run. Whereas last year, especially as early as the deadline, it was kind of like, yeah, we'll see what happens with this Suns thing, and it'll be more real this time. So I think it'll have more sway. The trade market, you never can really tell what you're going to be able to have. The Suns don't really have a ton to trade. They don't have their first round pick next season. Not a lot of young talent as far as guys who you actually would want to give up. Have a lot of players, but they're playing right now. So, TBD and who those guys will be or what that would look like is, I think there will be options. We'll see what they are. But you're talking about the exceptions, and it made me think of another storyline that I think has emerged within this free agency, partially because of the moves they've made, but also the moves that they haven't made. And that is the money.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty fine line as far as just balancing the success with what they've done this offseason. I think just bringing everyone back was like the main objective, and they did that. Adding a backup center that could give them some size was pretty high on the priority list too, just with how much they depended on DeAndre down the stretch and some of the heavy minutes he was getting. So I think checking that box, adding more shooting, someone that's a proven rotation guy like Landry Shamet also was going to help the rotation. But at the same time, I think there were some Suns fans that had some pretty high expectations that were probably a little bit unrealistic for the most part. It's like, oh, now that we made the finals, like we're going to get, the Laker treatment where everyone just wants scrambles here on the minimum. And that's just it's not going to happen, especially because with the Lakers, they had so many like rotation spots that were open and, obviously just it's a different market. So I think there's a lot of variables that were thrown in, but overall, I think they're going to be fine. They brought back all their key guys and their 10-man rotation is fairly set, and that's excluding Jalen Smith. So anything they do beyond this point is just a bonus, and we'll just have to see what they do at the trade deadline as well.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I mean, I think that's the two big things that I'm going to look for is, well, I guess it's not even going to be to look for, but you're right to say that the rotation was a big part. The fact that the Lakers could look at Malik Monk, for instance, who I'm sure Suns fans would have loved to get as like a flyer scorer, of who wouldn't. But they could say, like, you're going to play 20 to 30 minutes, and we need you. We need what you do because we're not going to be as good without you. Whereas the Suns, it's like, we'll see what happens. Like, you might get the Langston Galloway role where you don't play some nights. And, like, that's not appealing to 24-year-old Malik Monk or whatever age he is. So exactly. Just as an example. So I think that's a big part that has to be considered. And then as far as what I'm looking for, to return back to your point earlier in the buyout market idea, is the biannual exception. These other mechanisms, depending on what they do with the remainder of their mid-level exception. Are they going to spend are they saving those so they can use them later, or are they saving those because they don't want to spend the money? And that'll be, answered in the coming days and potentially months. And I don't think we can know right now. Because it's the same thing as I remember saying the same when, for instance, they signed one two-way player the first year that two-ways came out. And it's like, oh, nice, they'll be able to get whoever they want with the other one, and then they don't actually use it. And then they cut the guy who they had on the first one, and they didn't have any two-way players by the end of the season. So it's like we've seen this before where it seems like they're setting themselves up to take advantage of something, and then they don't end up doing that. So I don't even mean to end it on a negative note, because I think the main thing is the rotation is set. They're running it back. They have a great team. They have depth. They have so much good talent that they don't need players urgently to come in and contribute. But I also think it's fair to wonder, like, did they do every single thing that they could do to be ready for every situation come playoff time? And I don't know if they did.
That's definitely a fair question. And I think one thing that's important to like note for like all of our listeners is that right now we're looking at like an incomplete puzzle. Like there's a lot of pieces that still have to fall. So there's a lot of context that one move they make could totally change the tune, I think, for both of us on that. I think just right now we just kind of have to trust the process. Sorry, Philly fans, but I think there's still a lot more offseason left. There's still something they could do to solidify the rotation right now. If not, hopefully they use those exceptions later on to their advantage, because if they don't, it would just be a waste. And, for a team that doesn't have a G League or two-way spots, if you're not going to invest in the youth, at least use those exceptions while you can and try to make your team the best it can be. And I think James Jones will. He's a executive of the year for a reason. So I think we just got to sit back and trust him. It feels weird to say that as a Suns fan, just trust the GM. But I think
been a while.
He's proven it. Yeah.
Could say that. No, but he has proved it. That's the thing is, like, if you use that Torrey Craig example, it's like they waited, they were patient, and then they jumped on something when it materialized. And I think you can at least be sure he's going to do that. The Landry Shamet thing's a great example. Nobody was talking about Landry Shamet being available. And then all of a sudden, we can talk about the money part of that trade, but as a player, I think he's a really great fit. So they waited for that and it worked out. And so I think that he'll be ready to make a decision like that if and when it comes. I just think, like, I'm also remembering the Damian Jones thing where it's like, oh, they'll find his replacement on the buyout market. Look at all the centers who always get bought out. And then the musical chairs stopped and then they didn't get one. So it's a dangerous game to play. They don't need to find a great player on the buyout market or in the trade market or between now and training camp on the free agent scrap heap, but it would be better if they did. So we'll just have to see. You're right. One move can change things. It comes back to free agency is taking way too long. I just want it to be over. But yeah, I think that's a good place to end. Any last thoughts? Any wild predictions of what that move might be? Guys you want to see them fill out this roster with before we close things up?
Nothing wild. I think it's going to be, Thad Young to me is just the perfect fit. I'm just going to keep preaching that until he either gets traded somewhere else or the Suns just like sign someone else. So Thad Young to Phoenix, start Tyshawn Alexander, please.
Yeah, please. Very weird. That also relies on the Spurs making more than one trade every 3 or 4 years. So can't say I'm super optimistic, but I agree he'd be a great fit. A player like that is, I think, the missing piece here that we will see happen at some point. But that'll close us off for the day. Subscribe to Locked On Suns on YouTube if you have not already. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, of course. We're going every single day, at least through August. I haven't decided if I can make it stretch out all the way through training camp. 5 days a week. We might cut. We might not. I'll see. But we're not going anywhere for the time being. And enjoy your Monday, folks. We'll be back tomorrow.